It must have been a tense time in Jerusalem. Time was moving on. We read in Mark's Gospel, chapter 14, it was now 2 days before the Passover and the feast of the unleavened bread. The chief priests and the scribes were seeking how to arrest him by stealth and kill him. For they said, not during the feast, lest there be an uproar from the people. Passover is a time when Jerusalem was absolutely crowded. Opinion on Jesus was divided. We've already seen how he has come, welcomed by many, despised by others. We have seen his authority questioned and his understanding of the priorities of this life and of eternity. We've seen him stand in the temple and say, one day all this will be gone. The temple, Jerusalem, the world. But he will remain. Didn't fit with a lot of people's thinking. What I want us to see today, in the midst of all the stress, all the tension that would lead to what we call Good Friday, there is this moment where Jesus shows that his relationship with people is very personal. He is Lord of the big issues, but he's interested in every individual. Mark chapter 14, verse 3. And while he was at Bethany in the house of Simon the leper, as he was reclining at the table, a woman came with an alabaster flask of ointment of pure nard, very costly, and she broke the flask and poured it over his head. There were some who said to themselves indignantly, why was the ointment wasted like that? For this ointment could have been sold for more than 300 denarii and given to the poor. And they scolded her. But Jesus said, leave her alone. Why do you trouble her? She has done a beautiful thing for me. You will always have the poor with you. And whenever you want, you can do good for them. But you will not always have me. She has done what she could. She has anointed my body beforehand for burial. And truly I say to you, wherever the gospel is proclaimed in the whole world, what she has done will be told in memory of her. 3 situations, 3 individuals or groups. The first group are the complainers. We know Judas is one of them. They have got their own view on what would count and what's important. She should have done something different. She shouldn't have wasted this. God's word tells us that Judas is one of them, but adds a little note that Judas himself was helping himself to the money. So it was in his interest to get the money. It's all about money. It's all about material things. Those people will feature again. And they always do feature. But you know, Jesus says, whoever comes to me, I will never cast away. There will always be those who don't come to him. But let's pause and consider ourselves in the light of these other 2. Verse 3. While he was at Bethany in the house of Simon the leper. Don't miss that little reference. He was in the house of Simon the leper. Leprosy was a terrible skin disease. In Bible times, to have leprosy was to be excluded from society. Simon has a house. Simon is welcoming guests. His life has been changed by Jesus. He would not have been able to do that until he was healed. And in comes this lady, someone whose reputation would have been bad, and she brings this ointment, pure nard. Now, I'm not big into perfume, but this was very expensive perfume, and a lot of it. Some say it could have been worth a year's wages. And she took it, and she poured it on Jesus' head. Jesus makes a point of noticing her. She's reacting in gratitude for what Jesus has done for her. And Jesus said, when the gospel is proclaimed, what she has done will be remembered. What has she done? Two things. Unknown to her is the first one. She has anointed Jesus for burial. It was very tense. Jesus was heading to the cross. He had told his people. She was recognizing his value. She loved him. And then Jesus says about her, just before that, she has done a beautiful thing to me. Two individuals whose lives have been changed. The leper who can welcome guests. The lady whose life had been turned round. I want you just to think about that little sentence. She has done something beautiful for me. Something beautiful for Jesus. She didn't count the cost financially. She didn't count the cost in embarrassment. Her eyes were focused on Jesus. And she gave of her best for him. For the one who was about to go and give his life for her. Makes you think, doesn't it? At least it should. In the midst of all the big questions about the world's authority, the world's destination, Jesus spends time with people, and he welcomes people to himself. We've got a lot of time these days. At least it seems that way. The days are still the same length. We've time to reflect on Easter and the message without the same busyness that we usually have. Jesus invites us to sit with him. And this lady invites us to give to him, not counting the cost, to do something beautiful for Jesus.